The parking garage was silent. Cold concrete. Empty rows. Only the buzz of a few old fluorescent lights breaking the stillness of midnight. Charlotte walked slowly, flats echoing against the floor. Her blouse was wrinkled, her hair loose. She looked less like a CEO, and more like another tired worker finishing a long shift. That was the point. Nobody here knew who she really was. Then something caught her eye. A faint flicker. A trembling beam of light against the far wall. She turned her head. In the corner, beside the security booth, an old flashlight leaned against a thermos. Its glow fell across a battered table. And there, hunched over a thick book, sat the night guard. Caleb, his uniform jacket half unzipped. A notebook open in front of him. His pen moving quickly, his eyes fixed on the page. It wasn't a magazine. It wasn't a novel. It was programming. C++. He didn't even notice her at first. Charlotte stepped closer. "You always work under that light?" she asked. He startled, then stood up quickly. "Sorry, ma'am. I was just studying." She raised a brow. "Studying? Looks like more than that." He glanced down at the cover of his book. "Yeah, I'm working on a certification. I had to leave school, but I promised myself I'd go back." There was no bitterness in his voice, only quiet determination, and for a moment Charlotte saw someone else. Her father, years ago, working all day, then studying all night under the kitchen lamp. She reached into her coat pocket. Protein bar. Then, from her bag, a small book on algorithms. She placed them on his table without explanation. He looked up, startled. "You don't have to." "I know," she cut in softly. "But I want to." For a few seconds, neither of them moved. Then Charlotte gave the faintest smile, turned, and walked toward her car. She walked away, but couldn't shake the feeling she'd just met someone extraordinary. Sometimes the smallest detours lead to the biggest changes. Charlotte no longer parked near the elevators. Instead, her car always seemed to end up by the corner booth. No one questioned it. To everyone else, she looked like another tired contractor burning the candle at both ends. First, it was just greetings. A nod, a smile, a simple good night. But nights passed, and silence softened into words. Conversations grew. Slowly, naturally. One evening, as she sat on a folding chair beside his desk, Charlotte noticed a small photo taped inside Caleb's notebook. A young girl in a graduation gown holding a scholarship award. "My sister Lily," Caleb said, his voice steady. "First in our family to go to college. She worked hard for it. I just want to catch up." Charlotte studied the picture, the pride in his voice, and something inside her shifted. After that, their talks stretched longer. About books, about code, about the strongest instant coffee to survive night shifts. Charlotte found herself laughing, real laughter, not the polished, careful laugh she wore in boardrooms. With Caleb, she wasn't a CEO. She was simply herself. But what started as a secret friendship was about to be tested by the world outside. Real character is revealed when no one's watching. The rain came suddenly, cold, sharp, blowing in from the open side of the garage. Charlotte pulled her coat tighter, but it wasn't enough. Then Caleb stepped out of his booth. Without a word, he shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The fabric was still warm, faintly smelling of soap and coffee. "You'll catch something," he said simply. Charlotte froze, clutching the jacket. She didn't know how to answer. Another night, she found him again outside the booth. A delivery truck had wandered into the wrong level. The driver was frustrated, map in hand. It wasn't Caleb's job. But there he was, calmly explaining directions, walking the man across the garage, flashlight in hand. When the driver finally left, Caleb returned to his post, sat down quietly, and picked up his book. Charlotte watched from a distance. He didn't help for recognition. He didn't help for reward. He helped because it was right. Each gesture drew her closer, but also set the stage for a test she never saw coming. Sometimes opportunity wears the disguise of a broken machine. One evening, Charlotte walked up to his booth with an old laptop in her hands. It freezes. Blue screens. I was gonna take it to a shop, she said casually. But maybe you'd like the challenge. Caleb glanced at the machine. He hesitated. I don't have tools. No bench. No spare parts. Charlotte shrugged. No pressure. She started to turn away. I didn't say no, he added quietly. That night, the laptop sat on his kitchen table. Caleb rolled up his sleeves, screwdriver in hand. Dust on the fans. Mismatched RAM. Bloated software. Piece by piece he worked. Patient. Careful. Focused. On the third night, Lily walked in. Sleepy eyes. A blanket draped over her arm. You're doing this for her? She teased softly. Caleb shook his head. She's way out of my league. Maybe she doesn't believe in leagues, Lily whispered, leaving him to his work. By the end of the week, the machine purred like new. Streamlined. Faster. Stronger. When Charlotte switched it on in front of him, the screen lit instantly. No errors. No lag. You rebuilt the system, she said, surprised. I optimized it, he answered. Cut the fluff. Kept the essentials. Charlotte smiled faintly. She didn't show it, but inside, she was impressed. More than impressed. To her, this wasn't just repair. It was proof. She thought it was the beginning of his rise. But fate had a harsher plan. One photo can twist everything. It started with a single picture. Grainy. Taken from a phone. Charlotte and Caleb side by side in the garage. Her smiling. Him holding her car door open. By noon, it was everywhere on the company chat. Security guard aiming high. Sleeping his way up is real. Whispers turned into comments. Comments into accusations. Caleb saw it that evening. A coworker shoved the phone in his hand. He scrolled through the thread. Each line sharper than the last. He told himself not to care. But the silence cut deeper than the words. That night, Charlotte came by his booth as usual. Her face calm. Her tone polite. She asked about his studies. Smiled faintly. But not once did she mention the rumors. Not once did she defend him. And that silence hurt more than any lie. The next morning he typed a short email. No explanation. No complaint. Just a subject line. Notice of departure. The booth stood empty the next night. And Charlotte realized she had already lost him. Sometimes silence is louder than betrayal. Charlotte returned to the booth the next night. It was empty. The chair pushed in. The small lamp turned off. She opened the desk drawer and found a book. The same programming guide she once gave him. Inside, a note. Sometimes silence is louder than any answer. Her chest tightened. She had wanted to protect him from gossip. But instead, her silence had made him feel abandoned. Invisible. Days later, she climbed the cracked stairs of a small apartment building. Lily opened the door. Thin sweater, tired eyes. Charlotte spoke softly. Is he here? Lily shook her head. Not anymore. He transferred. Brooklyn docks. Night shift. Security. Charlotte frowned. Why there? Because no one knows him, Lily answered. No whispers. No pity looks. Just heavy boots and long hours. Charlotte swallowed. I never pitied him. I admired him. I know, Lily said gently. But he thought. Maybe you did too. Charlotte knew she had one last chance to prove what she truly felt. Fog, steel, and a single flickering light. The Brooklyn docks were cold. Fog curled between rows of steel containers. Charlotte walked slowly, heels crunching on gravel. And then she saw it. A small flashlight propped on a crate. Its beam glowing over a thick programming manual. Caleb. Just as he had been the first night she found him. Except now, his shoulders were heavier, his posture guarded. She stepped closer. Her voice low. I hoped you'd still be using that flashlight. He looked up. His expression froze. Silent. Waiting. Charlotte held out a folder wrapped in plastic. An official contract. Junior Systems Engineer. Hayes Tech. She swallowed hard. This isn't charity. It isn't pity. It's a job you earned. Long before I even knew your last name. Caleb didn't reach for it. Not yet. Why now? He asked quietly. Because I was wrong, Charlotte admitted. I thought staying silent would protect you. I thought if I waited, no one could accuse you of favoritism. But I forgot. Respect begins with honesty. And I failed you there. Caleb leaned back slowly, his gaze steady. I felt like I was being tested, he said. Like you were waiting to see if I'd crack. And when the rumors came, and you said nothing, Charlotte's voice trembled. I froze. I didn't want our story to start under lies. I wanted you to walk into that team with your head high. But in protecting you, I hurt you instead. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Caleb lowered his eyes to the flashlight. You believed in me, he whispered, even when I didn't believe in myself. Charlotte's chest tightened. I still do. He stood, slowly, carefully, and then he reached for her hand. Warm, steady, the first touch between them. No more silence, no more roles, only truth. The dockyard fog lifted, and so did the walls between them. From one flashlight to 1,000 glowing screens. The winter sun fell over Brooklyn. A new building stood tall on the corner. Glass, brick, and silver letters shining above the entrance. Rising steps, Tech and Skills Center. Inside, the rooms buzzed with energy. Laughter, the clack of keyboards. Dozens of screens glowing in unison. People once overlooked, now learning, building, and beginning again. At the center of it all stood Caleb Miller. No longer the guard in a dim booth. Now a lead systems engineer. His blazer neat, his badge shining. Beside him, trainees crowded with questions, and he answered each one with patience. Across the hall, Lily moved between students with easy confidence. Only 19, now an assistant instructor. She carried her own scholarship. A new future. Proof that one opportunity could ripple into many. Charlotte watched quietly, her golden hair catching the light. She still carried the poise of a CEO, but her eyes were softer now. Together, she and Caleb had built this place, not just for themselves, but for everyone like them. Later, Caleb walked to a wall covered in photos. Smiling faces, certificates, stories of change. In his hand, one last picture. A younger version of himself, sitting alone, a flashlight balanced over an open book. He pinned it carefully to the wall, a reminder of where it all began. Because sometimes, the smallest light in the darkest place can change countless lives.